And elsewhere on the continent, 6 children killed and 25 others injured in an explosion at a primary school in northwest Tanzania.
Well, then there's some more coming up in the next 60 minutes here on News 360. To our first story this evening, former Lands Minister Inúsá Fúseni has taken a swipe at the current minister, deliberately releasing a list of politicians owning lands in Accra to denigrate them with ill motive and intent. Responding to accusations, the Tamale Central Member of Parliament denied lifting a ban placed on sale of government lands by former President Mahama. He spoke exclusively to Komla Kluche.
An overwhelming number of politicians are said to be on a list of land grabbers which has emanated from the Lands Commission. Former President John Mahama have had to place a ban on the buying of state lands after a long battle of one of such belonging to the late Jacob Echebe Lamte, former NPP chairman. But that ban lasted only for a while.
I didn't lift a wholesale ban. I said I lifted the ban, but I failed to add the caveat in respect of certain specific lands. Land around the western region, Takoradi to be precise, the airport area, and land around Bachuna, that is Legon Farms, and land lying and being in Tamale, that is the old barracks. Yes, I lifted the ban in respect of those lands.
While assumption into office of the NPP administration, another controversy is brewing already over top politicians and very influential persons who have reportedly grabbed these lands. Former Lands Minister Inúsá Fúseni has justified it.
Many. I remember the famous person I remember who came to me to ask that his land be given to him, he be reallocated, is McMenu, former chairman of NPP. He came. He had been given land under Kofo. Many people, Ursula sent us to court. Ursula also had been given land. She wanted title to the land. And then because of the ban, we were not processing the title. She sent a Lands Commission to court.
He took a swipe at the current Lands Minister, John Peter Amewu, for playing what he described as mischief in releasing the list.
When a minister says that NDC was sharing land like Kiliwili, then it beats my imagination. I will say without any fear of contradiction, if we want to go that way, then probably MPP was distributing land like toffee, not toffee, confetti. Because if you produce the list of beneficiaries for the international students hostel, you will marvel.
Do you have that?
Esther Dapa, Kendap. There are many. It's unfortunate. It's done that purely for political reasons. It's done that to vilify the former administration. It's done that to paint appointees of the former administration in bad light. It's done that out of ill motive.
The Ministry of Lands has meanwhile constituted a committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the grabbing of such state lands. The Lands Minister, when contacted, will not respond to the issues.
And the latest on this issue, as we have it, is that former President Kufuor, former President Rawlings, as well as Chief Justice Georgina Theodora Wood have all responded to their names being mentioned on this list. And so we'll bring you the latest on that development in our subsequent bulletins. But on to education now. 6 months after TV3 visited the Tebu MA Basic School in the Gar South municipality, we've returned to find how far the issues plaguing the school have been resolved. Our reporter Solis Rose Korte, however, says there's been zero improvement at the school, with the only significant change being the increase in enrollment.
This is a perspective of a class 2 pupil of Tebu MA Basic School. This is what they have to go through every single day just to get an education. Kneeling or crouched on the floor with this bench as their table. It's not punishment, it's not a timeout for them. This is actually what they know as normal school life. So they usually alternate, sometimes with their knees on the floor, and then sometimes they just go, when they get tired, Then they go back on their knees again. Thank you very much. How are you? I decided to join them on the floor, basically to experience how it feels to just have to go through that. They have to be on their knees and alternate between lying on the floor, get up, stretch out a little bit, and lie on the floor again. I just lay on the floor for, I think, about less than a minute, and as you can see, I'm already dirty. Very dirty. If there was ever a definition of a white elephant, this borehole would definitely fit it. Since it was constructed during the elections in 2016, it hasn't actually worked. The last time you were here, you told me you wanted to be a pilot. Do you still feel like that?
Please, yes.
What makes you want to come to school?
To become someone great in future.
What is stopping you from learning very hard?
When you are studying about you must stop learning and you run for safety to the primary block. You'll be there when even it's getting there, you must pass through the rain and go home.
The Sustainable Development Goal number 4 looks at ensuring inclusive and quality education for all, as well as promoting lifelong learning. There are so many children out there, like Philip, who have big dreams of becoming fully functioning individuals to make sure that Ghana develops. Unfortunately, situations like the one we find here at the Table MA Basic School become impediments to realizing these dreams. What is government doing? What are duty bearers doing to ensure that the dreams of the likes of Philip come true? Solace, Rose Quarty, TV3.
Oh, still on this community, the Municipal Chief Executive for South, Joseph Nyani Stephen, has assured residents that by January 2018, the challenges facing pupils and teachers of Table MA Basic School will be no more. Speaking exclusively with Solace Rose Quarty, Ms. Nyani was emphatic the water crisis would be looked at immediately, adding that provision of electricity for the school will be a priority.
I'm actually from the Table MA Basic School, and I was there 6 months ago. Issues plaguing the school were highlighted, and majorly being the lack of resources, teaching materials, and the fact that the JHS blocks were not really buildings, or more like thatched huts. Are these challenges something that you are aware of?
Yes, I'm aware that indeed we have problems in those areas. Since our Zoom office, I toured almost all the schools. I found out that we have about 32 schools running shifts, 38 study under pavilions. Furniture situation in the municipality is also another huge problem. We have a deficit of 23,000. Since our Zoom office, so far, I have distributed about 1,300 furniture already. We sent 400 to Obom area. We have started with the procurement processes, and very soon the schools that need furniture will be given.
When are we to expect a new classroom block?
The school you are talking about, very soon they'll get yes. But in the next 3 months, they should be able to get yes.
So what you're saying is if I'm to go to Table in January 2018, I won't see what I saw there today?
Yeah.
Almost every time we come to, authorities in charge of ensuring that certain things are done, we are told very nice stories 6 months down the line, and I'm kind of hearing the same story with zero improvement totally in the school.
There's a different person you're speaking to. I'm Joseph Nyani Stephen, and I'm assuring that the next time you go to that school, you'll see that you have faced most of the problems that you are talking about today.
Thank you very much, sir. Right, so I've been speaking with Mr. Joseph Nyani Stephen. He is the MC of the Ga South Municipal Assembly. I am Solace Rose Corte, TV3, Accra.
We'll certainly stay with this issue and bring you more on it in subsequent bulletins. The Greater Accra Factory Inspectorate Division has only 5 staff to inspect 50 companies in a month. The division only received 3,000 cedis as its budgetary allocation for the whole of 2017. The amount currently has been spent on purchasing insecticides to fight rodents and in paying utility bills.
One is greeted with this messy environment at the main entrance of the Factorate Division. The building has not been painted since 1970, leaving much to be desired. The roofs are also ripped off, forcing the authorities to improvise with blocks. Huge gaping holes have also developed in the roofs, exposing it to heavy downpour. Inside the main building are untidy curtains and rusty cabinets, which are to keep records. Government has decided to roll out one district, one factory policy and as one of its major flagship programs. Our most important department, which is of paramount interest, is the Department of Factory Inspection. But here is the case, the department, the Greater Accra branch of the department, look at the curtains, the louver blades. It's just an eyesore. These cabinets are supposed to keep records, but look at how terrible they look, and look very rusty. All these things ideally are supposed to be, or they should have an automated system, but unfortunately all records have been kept here ever since the department was set up. The untidy nature of the offices have become breeding grounds for rodents, forcing staff to purchase insecticides. It also lacks computers, which has forced staff at the place to keep other records on tables. Behind the structure are these exposed cracks waiting for the building to collapse. Again, the roofs at this part of the building have also ripped off. However, the main head office has been painted but also lacks computers to work with. The whole of Greater Accra region, only one pickup has been allocated to them, but now 40. According to staff who declined to speak on camera, their budgetary allocation have consistently dwindled. Only in 2017, where 3,000 cedis was given to them for the whole year, but has now been used to pay utility bills. Part of the amount has also been used to pay transport fares for inspectors, who are only 5 at the unit. Head of Public Relations at the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations spoke about plans to revive the place.
Other institutions that have different policies and bills on occupational health and safety. There's one on radiation, on petroleum mine. The government wants to harmonize all these policies, into one document, put up an authority where all these institutions will be under one umbrella, collaborate together, coordinate together, so that there will not be overlapping activities and all of that.
Secretary General of Trade Union Congress, Dr. Yaba, also expressed concern about the need for government to help revive the place.
Inspector Division, the least said about it, the better. Look, I know the man who is in charge. He's miserable. The last time we went to President, he was there with us. If you are running an institution and they give you this amount you quoted, I don't know, to run it, what are you going to do with that money? So he's really, these are people who really want to work. There's nothing for them to work.
Keep an eye on these developments. But the minority in Parliament have accused the Economic Management team for causing financial loss to the state for failing to raise Ghana's first energy bond. Government targeted to raise some 6 billion cedis after it went to the bond market but failed to meet the target. It hinted of plans to summon the finance minister to Parliament for breaching the constitution.
Government announced the issuance of an energy sector bond hoping to raise 6 billion cedis and a possible 4 billion cedis. But after issuing a 7-year bond, the government was hoping it could raise 2.4 billion cedis to clear the energy sector debt. The minority is not enthused about the outcome.
The government decided to issue a bond. The energy sector bond has unfortunately turned to become an energy sector bomb.
They sought to state the true state of the energy sector as they left it. Minority spokesperson for finance, Kesela Tuforsen intimated that the government did not go to the bond market with a clean sheet.
Ghana has become a laughingstock for this gargantuan failure and bomb that cannot be located within the recent 2.5 million GPS, even in the middle of River Oti. You cannot even locate Ghana using Dr. Bawumia's Ghana Post GPS, which we all know is 419.
While outraged by the government posturing after what they called an embarrassment to the country, they took a swipe at the economic management team.
Anytime minority raise issues that he has to deal with, as the chairman of the economic management team, he ran away from the fact and says that we don't read. The world #1 reader cannot even raise a bond that anybody can do. It's interesting. Ghana's #1 reader cannot even raise a 6 billion bond. Yet he brought something that has put Ghana to shame. So, Mr. Vice President, this one, we need you as the chairman of the economic management team to come and answer.
The minority says it will not sit down for the government to embarrass the country in the manner in which they have done.
The Ministry of Finance and the government, they have caused financial loss to the state. The simple point is that instead of them issuing a bond called plain vanilla, they decided to use this complex structure that has caused the taxpayer some 200 basis points. 200 basis points, let me put it in plain language, is 2%. That can help the government to finance the free SHS that they are struggling to settle. That is why we are inviting the minister to give us, if there's any reason why they did that. We will wait until he comes to Parliament and answer that question, and we can now let Ghanaians be aware our next move.
All right, so the minority has been ascribing some reasons to why government was unable to reach that 6 billion cedis target. I've been joined on Skype by the Honorable Kojo Ponkrumah. He is a Deputy Information Minister, Member of Parliament for the Ofuasia Yoruba constituency, also a member of the Finance Committee in Parliament, so better place to speak about. Honorable, good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. The minority says that your reckless conduct has led to Ghana becoming a laughing stock in the international arena. Find out your thoughts about this. Really the case?
What's the evidence of this reckless conduct?
In the sense that you went onto the bond market with a very risky instrument as the ESLA PLC, when you could have actually opted for any other and gone on the back of Ghana's credibility, and you decided to go on this rather risky instrument which investors saw a lot of risk about because there was no sovereignty about that.
Well, thank you, and good evening to your viewers. And we have read the minority statement a number of times. For example, they say that the transaction was complex. The fact that they find it complex doesn't mean that investors found it complex. And we don't take any delight when we say that it appears that the minority does not pay attention to the detail of some of these things. They appear to be in a rush to try and attack politically, but they are not paying attention to the fine print and reading it. And let me explain to you why, if you give me a few minutes. The minority claims, for example, that the 7-year bond only raised about 1.5 billion cedis in the first transaction. If they paid attention to the statement issued by ESLA PLC, the 7-year bond was oversubscribed in excess of the 2.4 billion. Obviously, you wonder where they are getting that figure from. They again say that the 10-year bond got 760 million from the first window. It's not true. 872 from the first window. Before the extension gave us about 2.2 billion. Now, if you put it all together, we went to the market through a book-building domestic bond. And this is important to understand. A book-building domestic bond is not it's not a Euro bond. It's not a single bullet bond on the international market, for example. It means that you are gauging the market, you are looking at the liquidity in the market and the comparative rates, and that's when you have confidence that you can mobilize, you go and mop up a bit of money. We went looking for 6 billion. We got bids of 5.32 billion. That's about 89% of what we're looking for. Because of the rates that some were offering, and some were even offering rates higher than what they put in for the 5.3 billion, we decided that we'll only settle at 4.7 billion. That's about 78% of what we're looking for. All in all, first of all, you cannot even say that this is a failed transaction. Then they proceed to make the argument that we did not meet the debt servicing coverage ratio. And they look at the part of the prospectus that says that the debt servicing coverage ratio is about 1.25. And they come up with a calculation, a very interesting calculation, that the ratio we got is 1.1. again, it's factually inaccurate, and that's why we beg them to pay attention to the fine print. If we are receiving total ESLA inflows of 1.28 billion cedis, and what we are going to pay out in debt servicing is 1.15, right. That is obviously, we are obviously receiving more than what we are actually going to pay out. So we are covered. If you want to reduce it to the debt servicing coverage issue, yes, it is the 1.158 that you are looking at, but you're also looking at what is coming in on the upside. That is a 1.218 plus the 600 million underwriting by government, which they deliberately or unknowingly refuse to add to it. And if you add that, you notice that our debt servicing coverage ratio is 1.6 plus, as against the benchmark of 1.2. So again, on that one, they get it very terribly wrong. Then the final point they make is that the transaction is unconstitutional and didn't get passed.
As a matter of fact, they said that it should have come to Parliament to get a parliamentary approval on this, and they're going to have to summon the finance minister to answer questions on what has led to this.
So, Alfred, first of all, when they say it's unconstitutional, the question we all have to ask them, and I've been a journalist before, which provision in the Constitution have we breached? You don't just get to say it is unconstitutional, then you go home and sleep thinking everybody will believe you. Show us which article, which clause in the Constitution we have breached. They haven't been able to mention one. When they talk of parliamentary approval, I am on the Finance Committee in Parliament. I was with them on the floor of Parliament when we debated the budget. Paragraph 805 of the 2017 budget, again, anybody who wants to read is there, talks about this transaction and how we want to do it. When they sat in Parliament with us and when the Speaker put the question and they voted yeah, and gave parliamentary approval to the transaction, what secondary approval are they expecting this transaction to receive? When the Finance Minister came for the mid-year budget, and I think in paragraph 74 or so, and again reiterated this transaction, and they voted yeah, the voice vote, that this Honourable House takes that statement. What other parliamentary approval were they asking for? This is not an international finance transaction covered by Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution. The courts have been very clear on what qualifies in that case, and there are several cases that are bound to that effect. And the very final point they make, which my good friend had to post about, that we could have gotten this bond for 2% lower or 200 basis points lower. You should ask him, what is the basis of that argument?
Okay, I don't want to jump on. You know, this conversation, and this is just an initial reaction for this. I'm going to thank you very much, and because we're going to interrogate a lot more on this. But thank you for your time this evening. I'm grateful. I know you're preparing the budget, and how's it going?
So far, so very good. The results for the first year will be of interest to all of you. We have to pay attention to the targets we set for ourselves and how we have performed on those targets, and then pay attention to the new economic policies that we're going to set out in 2018. And by the grace of God, I'm confident that it will be an exciting day next Wednesday when the Finance Minister comes to.
I'm grateful for your time this evening. Have a good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Kojo Ponko is a member of Parliament for the Ofashie Yoruba constituency, member of the Finance Committee of Parliament and Deputy Information Minister.
On to other stories this evening. 27-year-old Mabel Ahmed Bekpo has been diagnosed with facial tumor. Doctors at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital say she needs 6,550 cedis to undergo surgery. Doctors fear her situation may become terminal if surgery is not done on time.
According to her family, the tumor started as a small swelling on her tongue. 3 years on, the tumor started growing bigger and now getting out of hand. Mabel now bleeds continuously each day and shows symptoms of fatigue, loss of appetite, sleeplessness and loss of weight. Mabel is battling with facial tumor and needs 6,550 cedis to undergo surgery. She is an orphan, and her uncle, who is taking care of her, said they have already exhausted all their funds on Mabel's health, moving from one hospital to the other.
Actually would love to do it more often. I think we should all do it because this is a great program you guys are doing, and it takes money to do what you are doing, and therefore you need support from everybody, and I would love to come back again and do it again.
Meanwhile, children from Immaculate Heart Nursery School have donated 500 Ghana cedis to help Mabel to offset some of her medical bills. Proprietress of the school, Nicolina Ejebene, said the donation was to inculcate the spirit of giving in the children. Officer in charge of social support, Akosia Ejeisono, received the donation on behalf of the MG social support team. Leader of the kids had this to say.
Next time when you are coming, how much will you be?
10,000 million.
Okay.
150,000 million.
Sympathizers should kindly send their donations to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital or to the TV3 newsroom.
A lot of kids, man. Absolutely. But I like the construction of the little girl's teeth.
It would grow.
They call it motorway those days. You know,
please give her
All
time.
the way, but amazing. Thank you. Still watching here on News 360. We'll be back with some business news. Do stay with us.
You're still watching News 360. Good evening to you and thanks for staying with us. Time for business with me, Nanikia Mensah Brampa. Starting with tonight, Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress, TUC, has implored government to convince banks to reduce their lending rates to prevent businesses from collapsing. Speaking ahead of the 2018 budget statement, Dr. Yao said this will enable government as well as entrepreneurs create more jobs to absorb the unemployed.
The Bank of Ghana base rate is now 21%. Inflation has currently dropped to 11.6% from 15.6% in 2016. Government again has reduced borrowing on the domestic market, reducing the pressure on funds. However, the banks have failed to reduce their lending rates affecting businesses. Currently, lending rates among most banks hovering around 25 to 35%. Currently, lending rates among most banks are hovering around 25 to 35%. Ahead of the 2018 budget statement presentation, the Trade Union Congress has described current lending rates as too high. Its Secretary General, Dr. Yao asked government to convince banks to reduce their rates.
Our members, many of them rely on loans now to pay their children's school fees and so on. So the interest rate issue is a big issue. And I think that government should pay attention to it by working with the banks. I'm sure with that kind of partnership with the banks, they should be able to understand that we are in this together. They are trained to deal with the risks, and they should be able to deal with the risks and bring the interest rates down.
The TUC boss was again worried about low salary levels in the public sector. Since the implementation of the single-span pay policy in 2010, real wages have increased by 15%. But these increases have been wiped out by inflationary trends. Dr. Yao charged government to address wage issues.
2013, 14, 15, 16, things, went down, and they still haven't come up yet. Inflation, we get increases that are below inflation. And anytime you get salary increase below inflation, real wages are going down, and they dropped and dropped and dropped.
He again appealed to government to create real jobs for recruiting more teachers and health officers to address the unemployment situation.
And this, you cannot develop a country, especially now that you have free SHS. Many more students will go to school. Those who have dropped out will go. You need more teachers. You need more assistants in the secondary schools to support all these young men and women who want education.
Now, where do the powerful and ultra-wealthy invest vast amounts of cash? Well, the answer is in offshore tax havens. A leak dubbed the Paradise Papers lists notable personalities and corporations operating such accounts. Amongst them is brother of Ghana's ex-president Ibrahim Mahama and Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. But is the act of investing offshore ethically wrong? Natalie Fort has more.
They are among the personalities and corporations listed in the finding. Global offshore law firm Appleby and corporate services provider Estera are the two major firms involved in facilitating the setup of these accounts. What's the aim? The avoidance of tax. The issue of tax evasion and hidden assets is one that's increasingly in the spotlight amid widening income inequality. So what's the ethical code in this practice? Brother of Ghana's ex-president, Ibrahim Mahama, opened an offshore account in the name of Red Sky Aviation Limited, which has a $7 million Challenger jet. In 2016, sons of ex-president John Agyekum Kufuor and United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan were identified as some Ghanaians who operated such accounts. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has also been named as having an offshore account. He was a co-founder of DataBank and a co-director with Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Songhai Financial Holdings, a subsidiary of DataBank's finance, fund management and investment company, DataBank Brokerage Limited. This has raised questions in the minds of many Ghanaians. We ask what the implications of tax avoidance are, and why already wealthy persons would want to find ways to avoid paying tax. Tax avoidance, while legitimate, can be seen as aggressive when it involves using financial instruments not intended or anticipated by governments as a vehicle for tax advantage, such as the use of tax havens. Avoiding tax and bending the rules of the tax system is not illegal, unlike tax evasion, but though operating within the letter, it's perhaps not in the spirit of the law. Payment of tax is viewed as a social obligation, providing the funds for services such as healthcare, education and infrastructure. Therefore, the act of tax avoidance undermines the very integrity of the tax system. Consumers expect big corporations to contribute their quota to societal development through the consistent payment of tax. Company directors argue, however, that their responsibility is to maximize the value that they deliver for their shareholder, including keeping tax cost to a minimum within legal realms. In the case of personalities evading tax, it makes one vulnerable to accusations of greed and selfishness, and could lead to damaged reputation and reduced public trust. To some, tax avoidance means duty avoidance, but to the super rich, it might just continue to be the perfect route to avoiding the burdens of tax compliance. Natalie Fort, TV3 News.
And talking about tax, we should be looking forward to some tax cuts in the upcoming 2018 budget to be presented in Parliament on November 15. But wrapping it up, looking at the forex markets, we've had the cedi depreciate against all four major trading currencies beginning the week till today. Now, we have it being bought at 4 Ghana cedis 38 pesos, almost inching to 4 Ghana cedis 40 pesos. And this is one area, especially freight forwarders are looking up to see some interventions from government in the 2018 budget. For the cedi to that of the pound, it is being bought at 5 Ghana cedis 74 pesos, and it will be sold to you at 5 Ghana cedis 75 pesos. And to the cedi to that of the euro, it is still being maintained at 5 Ghana cedis and a little change there, 0.9 pesos, and it will be sold to you too at the same price. Remember, these are the interbank figures, and these could inch up a bit when you visit the forex market. Let's see what happens regarding the 2018 budget, if really there'll be something there for the currencies. But that will do for business tonight. My name is Nanekia Mensah Brampa. Alfred is standing by now.
Fresh Prince Nana Kojo-Afreh will bring us all the news, the world of sports after this. To stay.
Good evening. Welcome back to News 360 here on TV3. My name is Nana Kojo-Afreh with the sports update. Let's get into the details. Now, Ghana coach Kwesi Appiah trained with a full house this evening at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium as he prepares his team for the final World Cup qualifying match against Egypt. TV3 Sports editor Michael Otieje spent the whole day with the team and says the motivation to win is high for the purposes of pride and records.
Well, the team is training at the moment at the Cape Coast Park. It's not exactly a full house of spectators in the stadium, as you can see. The Cape Coast Stadium, not exactly full, but the players behind me taking their session seriously. Now, every member of the side is in. The last two to join, Patrick Chumesi, who plays his club football in Azerbaijan, as well as the MLS-based Harrison Afro, both players training with the side. It means Kwesi Appiah has 20 23 players in camp. Are they up for it? I think so. But there's a sense about their body language that says that they regret not being able to play this game as a serious one. Whatever happens in this game, Ghana will not qualify for the World Cup. And you can tell from the body language, the mood around and everything that it's having a telling effect on the team.
But there's a lot of pride at stake for the Black Stars in this game after we mauled Egypt by 6-1 prior to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. They have gone on to beat us 3 times. Is this enough motivation for the team, from the players you've spoken to, for them to win this one?
Well, I think somebody like Christian actually suggested to me that the big motivation going into this game is that they need to show that they are Ghana, that there's a bit of pride element in this. As Amojan says, they will play for a FIFA ranking, and they will play to prove to people that even though they've not qualified for the World Cup, they are not such a bad team. And Kwesi Appiah has told the players that even though there may not be a World Cup place at stake, so the qualification is important, but I'm going to them in a crucial World Cup qualifier. It means in Appiah's mind that there's no room for error, there is no room for pretending that this is not important, because he says this every step of the way from now as a step towards the 2019 Nations Cup. So it may be difficult and it may not be the same way for the fans, but the coach and the member of the squad are keen to treat this as important as anything else.
Meanwhile, Chicago Fire striker David Accam will be out of action for a month after undergoing a hernia operation, the club has announced. The 27-year-old is expected to return at the end of December. The former Right to Dream Academy graduate has been overlooked for international call-ups despite impressing the Major League Soccer. Accam enjoyed the best ever season in the MLS, scoring 14 goals in 31 appearances at the end of the season. Now let's do some tennis news now, where world #1 Rafael Nadal will play David Goffin in the opening ATP Finals match on Monday. The Spaniard Nadal has been grouped with Belgium's Goffin, Dominic Thiem of Austria, and Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov. The first group begins on Sunday with 6-time Swiss winner Roger Federer playing Jack Sock of the USA and Germany's Alexandra Zverev against Czech's Wimbledon finalist Marin Cilic. Let's do some boxing before we wrap up now, and this time around we'll be looking at what is happening in the world of boxing, because Deontay Wilder says that he is ready to face Anthony Joshua in the ring. He's ready to face Anthony Joshua in the ring. According to Deontay, he will be able to beat the British in his new haven of New Britain. And that's all the sports here on News 360. My name is Anako Jaffe. Thanks very much for watching. Always a pleasure serving you. Good evening.
Welcome back to News 360 and some more stories this evening. The Court of Appeal has dismissed an application for a stay of execution by the Attorney General in the case where the residence and work permits of an Indian businessman, Ashok Sivram, are under contention. According to the court, the application and argument by the Attorney General were unmeritorious, hence their decision to dismiss it.
This is the 4th time the state has lost in its quest to have the businessman Ashok Kumar Sivram deported. Wednesday's ruling followed a new application filed by the Attorney General, represented by State Attorney Jasmine Amma, after it withdrew a similar one last week without any reason. The Court of Appeal, made up of 3 justices, dismissed the application, saying the argument by the Attorney General lacked merit. The state has been seeking a stay of execution after it was ordered by the High Court to, within 7 days, restore the work and residence permit of the Indian businessman. The court, on July 31, 2017, quashed the deportation of the Indian businessman Ashok Sivram by the Interior Minister Ambrose Derry. According to the court, the Interior Minister exceeded his jurisdiction by determining fraud against the Indian businessman without recourse to the court.
Let's now go for some international news. international front, at least 6 children have been killed and 25 others injured in an explosion at a primary school in northwest Tanzania. Reports say the pupils were playing with a grenade they had found. 3 were pronounced dead at the time they arrived at the hospital. The others succumbed to their wounds. The school is in Kagera region near the border with Burundi. The region also hosts refugees from neighboring Burundi, some of them ex-soldiers who have been abandoned also and their weapons in the area, which has led to this explosion there. That's what's happening on the international front. We'll be back with some entertainment news after this break.
We've got some entertainment news for you shortly. Remember, this bulletin is streaming live on 3news.com as well as TV3 Ghana. You can always join us on our social media sites. But in entertainment this evening, former President John Dramani Mahama has paid a visit to legendary comedian actor Super OD at his Agona Swedru home. The well-known comedian and actor, now aged 82, has been incapacitated as a result of old age. The former president announced his visit to Super OD on his Facebook page with photographs captioned, "I was in Swedru on Sunday to visit my friend, the good old Super OD. He's such good company always." The NDC's Central Regional Chairman, Alote Jacobs, presented an undisclosed amount of money to the veteran actor, who is a known NDC loyalist. Super OD, whose acting career spanned over 4 decades, was a key member of the Osofo Datsi drama group, the Akan drama series, popular in the 90s. Well, great to know you paid me.
Yes, yes. Yeah. But at this point, you know, help from all other political parties would be something of great joy to Super OD.
It would be, in spite of an NDC law.
Absolutely. And so, on that note, we'd want to thank you for spending your 60 minutes with us here on News 360. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're grateful. My name is Alfred Okansi.
And I'm Natalie Fort. We've got more news on our website, that's 3news.com. And news at 10 days this evening will simulcast on our sister station, 3FM 92.7. Next is Tashan. Have a lovely evening.